Not long ago, it felt like cost control had taken a back seat in American business. For years, the focus was on growth, scale faster, hire more, expand into new markets, spend aggressively to capture customers before competitors did. As long as revenue was rising and capital was cheap, controlling costs wasn't always the top priority. But that environment has changed. And now, something interesting is happening across industries. American businesses are relearning cost control fast, not as a minor adjustment, but as a core strategy again. So the question is, why now? Because this isn't just about cutting expenses. It's about adapting to a completely different economic reality. Let's start with what changed. For a long time, money was relatively easy to access. Low interest rates made borrowing cheaper. Investors were willing to fund growth. Companies could operate with thinner margins as long as they showed potential. That created a certain mindset. Growth first, profit later. But as economic conditions shifted, that model became harder to sustain. Higher interest rates increased the cost of borrowing. Investors became more cautious, and suddenly, profitability mattered again. Not in the future, but now. That shift alone forced companies to rethink how they operate. Because when capital becomes more expensive, every dollar counts. Now let's talk about inflation. Rising costs have put pressure on almost every part of a business. Materials cost more, labor costs more, energy costs more, transportation costs more. So even if revenue is growing, margins can shrink. And when margins shrink, businesses have two options: raise prices or control costs. But raising prices isn't always easy. Customers are more sensitive. Competition is tighter. Demand can drop. So companies are turning inward, looking at their own operations, asking where they can become more efficient. Now here's where things get interesting. This isn't just about cutting obvious expenses. It's about rediscovering discipline. For years, many companies operated with layers of spending that were never fully optimized. Extra hires, underused tools, inefficient processes, redundant systems. In a growth-focused environment, those inefficiencies were easier to ignore. But now, they stand out. Because every inefficiency has a cost. And in a tighter environment, that cost becomes visible. So companies are going deeper, analyzing operations, streamlining workflows, eliminating unnecessary complexity. And this is leading to a different kind of organization: leaner, more focused, more disciplined. Now let's talk about hiring. This is one of the biggest areas where cost control is showing up. Instead of rapid expansion, companies are becoming more selective, hiring fewer people, but expecting more productivity. At the same time, they're investing in tools that increase efficiency: automation, AI, better internal systems. Because if you can do more with fewer resources, you protect your margins. And that's the goal. Now here's another shift: accountability. In a high-growth environment, spending decisions can be more flexible. Teams get budgets, projects move forward, experimentation is encouraged. But when cost control becomes a priority, accountability increases. Every expense needs justification. Every project needs clear value. Every investment needs a measurable return. And that changes decision-making. It slows down unnecessary spending. But it also sharpens focus. Now let's look at pricing again. Cost control is closely tied to pricing strategy. Because if you can't control costs, you're forced to rely on pricing to maintain margins. But if your costs are under control, you gain flexibility. You can be more competitive. You can absorb some increases without losing customers, and that creates an advantage. So cost control isn't just defensive, it's strategic. Now here's something even more important. This shift is not temporary. Companies are not just reacting to current conditions, they're preparing for a future that feels more uncertain. Because the past few years have shown how quickly things can change. Supply chain disruptions, market volatility, economic shifts, all happening faster than expected. So businesses are building resilience, and cost control is a key part of that. Because the more efficient your operation, the more flexibility you have when conditions change. Now let's talk about technology. One of the biggest tools enabling this shift is AI. Companies are using AI to analyze spending patterns, identify inefficiencies, automate repetitive tasks, improve decision-making, and reduce operational costs. This is not just about replacing work, it's about optimizing it, making processes faster, cheaper, and more reliable. And that's accelerating the move toward cost discipline. Now zoom out for a moment. What we're seeing is a reset, a return to fundamentals: revenue, costs, margins, cash flow. For a while, some of these fundamentals were overshadowed by growth and expansion. But now, they're back at the center of business strategy, and that's changing how companies operate. Now, does this mean businesses are becoming overly cautious? Not necessarily. Growth is still important. Innovation is still critical. But the balance has shifted. Companies are no longer willing to grow at any cost. They want sustainable growth, profitable growth, efficient growth, and that requires discipline. Now think about the long-term impact. Companies that learn to control costs effectively become stronger, more resilient, better prepared for downturns, more competitive in pricing, more attractive to investors, and more capable of scaling sustainably. So this isn't just about surviving a tough period, it's about building better businesses. Now here's the key takeaway. American businesses are relearning cost control because they have to. The environment changed, the rules changed, and the strategies that worked before don't work the same way anymore. But in that challenge, there's also an opportunity to become more efficient, more disciplined, and ultimately more durable. Because in the end, the companies that win are not just the ones that grow the fastest, but the ones that manage their resources the smartest. And right now, that lesson is being learned all over again.